Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the Behind Company Line podcast. Today we have Armand Paradis, co-founder and CEO of ComboCurve, the fastest growing technology platform in energy. Armand, I'm so excited to chat with you, not only to learn about you as a founder, but also to share with the audience some interesting insights to things that are really becoming more and more prevalent, which is power and energy and how companies are kind of using technology to not only evaluate their current consumption and yields and performance, but also improve and make these improvements for positive initiatives, things that we all care about. But before we get into all that, what were you doing before you started ComboCurve?
So I always been in the energy space. So yeah, I was working for a large energy company and before starting ComboCurve.
Yeah, and I was looking at your background and I'm not sure what a reservoir engineer is. And so describe for our audience to give some context, what does a reservoir engineer do and why is their job function so important to energy in this whole field?
Yep. So what a reservoir engineer does, it basically, all these energy companies, they spend billions of capital yearly.
Yeah.
So to spend that capital wisely, you need to run a lot of forecasting and a lot of economics. And that's what the reservoir engineer do. Like it allows companies to figure out where to spend that capital and optimize it to get the highest return on their capital.
Got it. And so it's more around the economics component as well, right? And
Yeah.
what in particular are they spending money on? Is this like the regular products that they're running, or is this the capital that they deploy to say decrease energy consumption? What in particular is that capital?
So yeah, energy companies that like a lot of them are focused on generating different types of energy, correct? So like some of it can be fossil fuel, some of it can be just solar, wind. So that's what they do. Any source of energy, they focus on that, generating those energies. So what is important for this huge amount of capital that they need to spend is to again spend it wisely and then making sure that they generate the highest bang for their buck. And then that's what I'm specialized on, and that's what the ComboCurve does. It gives modern tools and modern platform for the energy industry to make the right decisions in terms of generating and the highest return on their capital.
Got it. And when you say highest return on the capital, is that the money that they invest into building the infrastructure to be able to generate energy, and then the energy that they then generate is then distributed to others, and then that essentially is kind of compared against the cost of what it took to operate that machine? Is that kind of what you're seeing? Is there anything else involved in that capital movement?
So yeah, so basically anything in terms of building infrastructures and the facilities, like any sort of operation they have, like where to buy assets, where to sell assets, any of those optimization to figure out if they want to invest in this project or that project. And again, a lot of these companies are focused on generating different types of energy. It can be natural gas, it can be oil, it can be solar, like all those. So basically what ComboCurve does allows you to spend your capital wisely, predict the future, and also forecast your emissions.
Yeah. And what are they, and when you think about different types of energy that they're generating in the different projects, what are the most common types of energy that these companies are investing in to generate? And then outside of that, what are some things that we may not know that they're experimenting with or working on in terms of other projects that are feeding into that pool of energy?
Yep. So if you see the energy breakdown in the world, more than 80% currently is coming from the fossil fuels. Yeah. And then the other is from other sources of energy. So and within that 80% is you're talking about, we have diesel, we have natural gas, we have oil products, and we have coal, right? Mm-hmm. And then there is nuclear, there is solar, wind, and the hydro plants. So these are the other 20%. So currently a lot of dollars being spent on the renewable sources, but so far we haven't seen tremendous amount of percentage growth. So like we still sub 10% from the renewables, but it's growing very rapidly. So that's the overall breakdown. So currently a lot of companies that we are dealing with, they're spending a lot of their capital on the oil, gas. They spend a ton of their capital on a lot of them moving to renewable energy very quickly. They're spending a good chunk of their money investing in renewables and also geothermal. So So
Yeah.
basically, geothermal energy is getting popular as well.
Yeah. And why hasn't renewable energies been more at the forefront? Is it because they have some sense? Is it easier to deal with fossil fuels? Is it more abundant? Is it more difficult? Is it cheaper? Why are we focusing on those types of fuels versus others that are renewable? Is the lack of technology? Just curious on why that transition hasn't come.
So it's happening, but it just takes time. Something that's been like, we are so embedded with the fossil fuel we've been using it for over 100 years, right?
Yeah.
So it just takes time to get away from something that we've been used to for a very long
Sure.
time. And a lot of times, if you look at it, the energy consumption is growing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, so I see it more of an energy expansion in a lot of cases than just transitioning, because we're using more and more energy, and everybody wants to have a bigger house, more cars,
Sure.
and they want to travel more. So these all burn more energy. So the lifestyle, a lot of those are again coming with the lifestyle adjustment, which a lot of people are not comfortable to change, correct? So
Yeah.
so yeah, so it takes a lot of time. But why a lot of capital is still being spent on the oil and gas? Because we still need them heavily for foreseeable future. And then one of the key problems with the solar and wind is basically storage of the solar and wind, and the cost of storage is very expensive. You're talking about buying battery storage and the other forms of storage, which they are majority of them are very expensive. So like, for example, using the battery storage, the batteries are very expensive. So everything has its positives and negatives, so you cannot just say renewable is amazing, because if you think about renewable energy, a good chunk of those materials are coming from countries like China. So you're going to have full dependency on China if you just want to completely move away from fossil fuels immediately, right?
Got it.
And majority of those materials and like, let's say if you want to buy solar panel, all the solar panels are coming from China. So you're shifting dependency from US to China. Which hasn't been working out very well these days.
Yeah. There seems to be, I think, localizing the energy production or anything production wise is just better in terms of the supply chain. But in regards to emissions, I think a lot of people, just on average, those outside of the industry, think it's like a basic input output. You input X amount of activity and then output X amount of or Y amount of energy or emissions. But that's technically, that's not the case. Describe the ecosystem around energy and how emissions is this measurable, but can also be distributed with other companies, with other kind of ways you can facilitate that. It's not necessarily you own that emission, right? You can also distribute it and get other credits and things like that help kind of balance out the overall cost of that. So describe a little bit more about the emissions life cycle and why it's not just a simple input output measure that a lot of us think.
Yep. So if you look at a big company, like let's just use a big oil company as an example, correct? So they have so many different types of moving parts and operations, correct? So they have emission because they're using electricity in their office. So, or they drill oil and gas wells, which when you drill something, you're going to use a rig, and their rig is going to burn diesel, and that diesel is emission. So it converts to CO2 and emission. They have operations those operations like around maintaining those oil and gas production. That means they're going to emit energy, emit CO2 and emit carbon, emit CH4 and methane. So the carbon can be emitted from so many different ways, correct? And just figuring out what is the percentage is coming from this operation, what's the percentage coming from this part of the running business is very challenging. But our platform allows you to figure that out very quickly, and also figuring out those strategies to reduce emissions, correct? For example, one of the things that a lot of companies used to do, but they're not doing that anymore as much, is flaring. So you can go and figure out, if you reduce your flare, how much emission reduction are you going to have, and what's the economic impact, correct? Yeah. So what our platform does, it combines forecasting with the economic forecasting in one area, one platform. So meaning you can run so many scenarios of emission reduction and see the economic impact to see if if you reduce your emission by, let's say, changing your rig from a diesel to electric rig, what's the impact on your emission? So let's say if you're moving away from a diesel truck to electric truck for moving your equipment or let's say if you're changing your company cars from, let's say, gasoline to electric cars, what's the impact on your emission for your company? So these are the types of analysis that ComboCurve allows you to do very quickly and see the economic impact on your assets and on your company's balance sheet.
Yeah. And do you have to, as a company, do you have to consider, say, the minute detail of energy consumption? Say, if we did move to electric cars as a company, but then where's the material to build that car? Where's the supply chain there? How much emissions? Do you have to go in that granular of detail, or where kind of does the buck stop?
Yeah, because as of right now, we don't go to that level of detail yet because it can get crazy. If you want to follow the supply chain, it can get way too complicated, correct? So at the stage that we are is like scenarios like, okay, I have 100 gasoline cars, or I have 10 gasoline rigs. Or diesel rigs. I'm going to move them, but I'm going to convert them to electric. What's the impact? Or let's say if I have so much equipment that emit this much CO2, if I go and fix those valves and equipments, how's it going to impact my emission? And what's the economic burden? And how is it going to impact my net present value of my assets? So to that level of detail, it handles it very well. But if you want to follow the supply chain and those things, it can get very complicated. And then, we have it in our milestones, but as of right now, it's not something that a lot of our clients are requesting.
Yeah. And thinking about just the previous incumbent to ComboCurve, how are they tracking emissions before having a platform like yours that does it so sophisticated? And then secondly, why is it so important to keep better track of your emissions and your capital and where you're deploying it?
Yeah. So before us, they were using Excel for most part. There wasn't a real good platform, or some platform that wasn't necessarily designed for the energy space. It was just general platform that you have to go and force it to make your workflow easier. It's just like some of them weren't as easy to use and weren't designed necessarily for the energy space. But what you build is literally for the energy space, for their workflow, day-to-day workflow. So it resonates a lot better, and it has a lot of functionality that allows them to do more granular and more bottoms-up analysis.
Yeah.
So
And
so that's
I was going to say, what's the most, and why is it so important now? Are there more kind of restrictions or legislation, or what in particular is pushing energy to start adopting technology to have more intelligent, accurate estimates of the capital they're deploying and the energy that they're emitting?
Yeah, the push is coming from several aspects. Obviously, it's coming from the government and regulatory firms. So obviously, government is pushing for more and less emission, moving toward more and more green or renewable energy. So that's one big push. And then the other push is from the investors and the ESG related metrics. So they want to invest their capital with the companies that they have lower emission. So, and that's a very important factor. And the third one is from the public and their employees. So a lot of people care about these reductions efforts. So for the company to be able to absorb great talents, so they want to be proactive about these emission reduction efforts. So the push is coming at least from three aspects: government and the regulatory and the investors and the public and their employees.
Yeah. And describe a little bit more. I think a lot of us assume the energy that we consume is coming from one location. We pay one provider. Say in my area, it's like, I think Southern California Edison or something like that is my provider. Other areas is PG&E and so forth. But they're not necessarily the ones creating all the energy. Are they collecting it, storing it, and distributing it? How does that work? Are there a bunch of energy, I guess, producers that distribute to networks like this? I feel like the public is generally pretty far removed from where the energy comes from. But we all want sustainability and emissions, but don't know necessarily the impact that has on the whole chain. So describe where the energy is produced, how do we get it, and how we can better understand that supply chains to manage our expectations for emissions and ESG.
Yeah, absolutely. So currently more than 80% of the energy that we are consuming is coming from fossil fuels, right? And that comes from the oil and gas companies. They go and drill a well and they generate natural gas and oil and those oil and gas wells. So that's the majority of the energy. And the remainder, 20% is coming from solar, wind, hydro, nuclear, and other types, biofuels. So oil and gas still has a huge percentage of the energy contribution. So like, for example, PG&E and the other ones, they still rely on natural gas to a great extent and to be able to generate electricity. So a lot of electricity is coming from natural gas or some cases coal. And again, the reason behind it is because, like I mentioned, the energy storage is very expensive as of right now. So like, even because the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. So if we even can generate unlimited amount of energy from solar and wind, you have to store it somewhere because at night there's no sun, obviously. So, but the fossil fuels and the coal and the nuclear, they themselves is a form of energy storage. You see, like coal is you can store coal locally and as much as you want, correct? So, and it doesn't matter if it is available at any time, day, night, pretty much any time, correct? So it's just that they don't require energy storage.
Got it.
So that's why we need fossil fuels for foreseeable futures until we have plenty of energy storage and solar wind available. Even if we have unlimited amount of energy storage, you're still gonna need oil and gas because you need raw materials.
Yeah.
So if you look around yourself, 95% of materials around you, it has oil and gas in it.
Yeah.
So you need oil and gas for the material. So again, it comes from oil and gas companies to generate it.
Yeah.
And what we do, we help energy companies like oil and gas companies to be able to spend their capital efficiently to emit less carbon to generate energy. Because even when you want to drill the oil and gas wells, you're going to emit CO2 during the drilling operations, and also you're producing your wells. So what we give them a platform so they can reduce their emissions, figure out ways to reduce their emissions and be more efficient.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit more about ComboCurve. I know you've been running the company now for 6 years, and tell us a little bit about the traction you've seen up to this point now, and where the future is in ComboCurve, and what you're particularly excited about this year, and who you'll be working with, and anything that really is exciting.
Yep. So we released our product in May 2020 during the COVID. And so it was at that time we were 15 people full time. So it was crazy time. It was again because of COVID. We were thinking the world is going to end. But during that time, we didn't have any clients, and we were a very, very small company, and we started working remotely. So in the course of almost 2.5 years post COVID, we have right now more than 300 companies using our platform for their day-to-day work. And we went from 15 people full-time to over 150 full-time. So that's a 10x growth. So that has been the most exciting. And also the amount of clients that we brought on in such a short period of time. So we have companies like individual level using it all the way to big, massive corporations using our platform. So it's been very, very exciting, and the market feedback has been amazing. So a lot of people love our products, and the feedback has been great. So our goal is to build a pretty much an operating system for the energy industry. So meaning you can run your business in one platform. Yeah. And that's why you can connect all your workflows in one place. So basically taking you from raw data from different sources to a boardroom presentation using one platform.
Yeah, it's incredible to think about how much data and the ability for technology nowadays to be built to be able to communicate with other pieces of technology to give so much insight to companies to be able to make not only accurate predictions, but to understand where they are even at that current present time. And just out of curiosity, in terms of ComboCurve, whether it's external or internal, what are some of the biggest risks that you think the company faces today?
So the risk, so I mean, some of them is going to be macro risks, like for example, a huge fluctuation of the in commodity prices. It impacts us. So because that means companies have less time to focus on adopting technologies.
Yeah.
So any major changes in the commodity prices that impacts us. So we are, so that's one of the biggest risks. The other risk that I see is around macro. If you have recessions and the companies becoming less and less, or more and more concerned about their budget and less concerned about adopting new technology and more concerned about just maintaining their cash and just maintaining their business.
Yeah. And if everything goes well, what's the long-term vision for ComboCurve?
Yeah, so the long-term vision is, again, building a platform that energy company can collaborate internally and also externally, and to be able to run their business in one platform. And so without the need of jumping from one software to another software, and basically removing all the silos and bring all the data together to be able to make economic decisions very quickly and rapidly and more accurate. So again, our goal is to make them a lot more efficient and to be able to spend their capital a lot more wisely and a lot more efficiently in terms of emission, right? So you want them to reduce their emission while they're increasing their production.
Yeah. I was like, this next section, I'll call it my founder FAQ. So I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions, then we'll see where we go.
Okay.
First question, you have to open it up. What's particularly hard about your job?
So scaling the company effectively and building systems, and also making sure any hiring that we do is they're aligned with the company's vision and the culture, and also align in terms of the scaling the company with the pace that we want to scale.
Yeah. Thinking about more about the industry and more specifics about just energy and overall, where does the innovation, in your opinion, need to come? I know you're mentioning there are difficulties in storing renewable energy. Maybe there's something there, but where in particular in the whole supply chain of energy does a lot of the innovation need to come outside of course, understanding the distribution of capital and also the emission costs? But where else would does the innovation need to go to become a little bit less harmful to the environment overall as a process?
Mm-hmm. So again, the way that I see it, a lot of with moving away from fossil fuels and using less of that means we're going to be more dependent on renewable energy. But the currently majority of the material that we need to build renewable, let's say solar panels and wind, we are full dependency on foreign countries, which again is not very positive. So and there's going to be a lot of more mining because we need a ton of material and raw material to be able to get there, and a lot of those raw materials are coming from countries like China. So we just have to make sure we take everything into consideration and just don't make one industry completely evil and the other ones like our angels, correct? So just this whole approach of black and white is not wise. So I see any form of energy have positives and negatives. So we have to look through like you said, the whole supply chain and see the full impact, and instead of just getting emotional and just, this is terrible, this is amazing, let's go that route. It requires a lot more detailed analysis. So I would say any huge breakthrough on the energy storage and the battery storage that can accelerate a lot of, I would say, renewable energy growth, correct?
Yeah.
So that would be one of the game changer technology if it comes about around the battery. But I think that would be the most impactful.
Yeah. And from a company standpoint, thinking about the ways not only your technology can impact the company, but how many companies out there you could potentially work with, how do you focus on staying in a particular region, being that your technology can be used probably internationally and with other companies, and and maybe even create more of an aggregate network of companies in an ecosystem where not only you understand a lot of the energy emissions and where capital be deployed, but you can also kind of help people work together. How do you focus on expansion and I guess offering your product to more and more, whether it's people, companies, countries? How do you kind of focus on where to expand with a product like this?
Yeah, first of all, our goal is to currently we are mainly focused on oil and gas and what we are moving. We have plans to move to renewable very quickly as well. So we want to take care of all forms of energy. So, and a lot of companies that are focused on oil and gas, they are investing in renewable energy as we speak. Like they're investing in the solar and wind and geothermal. So which is pretty cool. So that's one way of expansion, and the other one is expanding overseas. Currently, majority of our clients are located in the US, but we see all these workflows and that we are providing to our clients are applicable to a lot of overseas clients as well. So it will be expanding within all forms of energy and also expanding to internationally.
Yeah. And thinking about the product in particular, I would like to ask founders, how's your product changed from the initial idea or the build from that MVP? Would have changed with the product from that point? And what's particularly interesting about, say, like the business model, the pricing that you had to kind of figure out along the way?
Mm-hmm. So our vision hasn't materially changed since day zero. So because again, we understand the workflows of these companies very well. So it's just, and so what has changed? We have significantly bigger dev team. So we are adding a lot more features and functionality very quickly. So, but again, the vision is still the same vision. We want to aggregate data from different sources, many different sources, bringing it to one place. And we started from the cash flow forecasting and economics, and we are building all the other adjacent workflows such as planning and scheduling and emission forecasting all in one platform. So we are working toward that vision and adding more and more adjacent workflow to the core workflow just to make sure everybody can collaborate in one place.
Yeah. As a founder, what's something that you know now that you wish you learned earlier on?
Yeah. So that's a very good question. So yeah, I would put more energy on bringing people who are completely aligned with the company's vision and culture. So yes, I think as a founder, that's the key, like bringing hiring the right people. So that's the key, and also building systems that can scale. So that's another one, like building more of a process-oriented company that can scale. So that's the top two things that I would say I would have put more focus on.
Yeah. I always like to ask this as well, because I love how founders extract knowledge from anything that they ingest, whether it's early in your career or now. What books or people have influenced you the most?
That's a good question. So I would say the book is Some People by Dale Carnegie.
Yeah. What in particular was impactful about that?
So it's just human interactions and communicating with people is extremely important. And I underestimated that, but as a company grows, and you will see how important it is to have a better communication with people and how to deliver the message. So and reading that book, it helped me a lot.
Yeah. I would like to ask this I know we're coming to the end of the episode here, but before we close out, just to make sure we didn't leave anything on the table, is there any question I didn't ask you that I should have or that you would have liked to answer? Anything come up at all?
So one thing that I always encourage people is see that like moving, like, so a lot of people thinking moving away from fossil fuels can happen very quickly, and just making those decisions, let's go and ban XYZ, let's go not invest in XYZ, but the consequences can be very dangerous. We know what happened to Europe last year. They had huge amounts of energy problems. There are cases that people went back to the coal, starting more coal fire plants and starting burning wood, and a very primitive way of generating energy, which is significantly more harmful than using, let's say, cleaner sources of fossil fuel, like such as natural gas. And a lot of it happened because of making rush decisions, and a lot of them are emotional decisions. Again, we've been using fossil fuels for years. Going away from fossil fuels takes time, and it requires a lot of proper planning and a lot of investment. But as long as we are moving toward that direction, but again, you can generate fossil fuels that is carbon negative. There are ways to do that, and a lot of energy companies are actually doing that. And then the other thing is, any oil and gas that has been produced in the U.S. is significantly more cleaner than any oil and gas that we import. Like California is a example of actually importing a lot of fossil fuels from foreign countries that have significantly higher emission intensity than the U.S. itself. So it doesn't do any good, correct? So it's just not a smart decision. So again, we have to see that as a 30 years, 50 years plan, and don't rush it, and take everything into consideration, and see that you can even generate oil and you're going to need oil and gas for foreseeable futures, because you still need material, correct? So even if you removed the burning part of the oil and gas for energy use, if all majority of the materials around you have oil and gas in it, so even for the energy, for the renewable energy to be able to transition to renewable energy, you're still gonna need a ton of oil and gas to get there. So the point is, this approach of black and white, let's just completely eliminate oil and gas in day zero, moving to solar and wind. That's not possible physically and economically. It's not possible. So you have to see it as a long-term strategy. So that's the biggest recommendation for all the politicians and everybody who's making decisions around these topics.
Yeah. What needs to happen for that transition to complete, or at least continue to progress in the direction and not have a situation like Europe had last year that you mentioned? I totally forgot about that difficulty and how that hard, almost like a hard turn in a large cruise ship. It's going to have some negative effects, right? And what in particular needs to happen for that transition to be completed?
It's one of the cleanest sources of energy around the U.S. natural gas. It's very clean, significantly cleaner than other sources of energy. And again, there are a lot of oil and gas companies currently that they reduce their emission to very, very minimum. And they even have planned to go completely zero emission, meaning you can always, like you mentioned, you can offset that carbon generation by other activities that reduce your carbon.
Yeah.
Right? So basically focusing on the initiatives, like one of them is like planting more and more trees. That's one easy example, correct? We removed so much of the forest in the past 1 century or so. Like we remove, more than 50% of our forests. So replanting those forests, it means while you can basically offset that carbon that you're emitting from burning, let's say, natural gas, correct?
Right.
So, and while we are figuring out those technologies like around energy storage that are cheap and effective, and they are not fully reliant on China, correct? So more than 90% dependency for renewable energy on China, that's not a long-term viable strategy, right? So basically this is one of the key recommendations, is like focusing on the energy storages that are cheap and effective and can be generated in the US, and in the meantime moving toward more a cleaner source of energy such as natural gas as a bridge, I would say bridge.
Yeah. Armand, it's been such a pleasure not only listening to your experience and your background, but also understanding not only energy and the whole supply chain process, but where the improvements can be made, where the insights can really help companies make better decisions, think about their emissions, but also think about the different projects that are deploying capital in maybe natural gas or other ways that will make an overall more energy efficient and I guess a safer way to burn energy and to distribute it. Last little bit is I always like to give our guests a chance. Give us your plugs. Where can we support you as a founder? Where can we support ComboCurve as a company? Give us your LinkedIn's, the websites, Twitters. Where can we find and support you?
Yeah, I'm always on LinkedIn. So Armand Paradis on LinkedIn. So I'm very active. So if you want to reach out to me, just send me a message. And our website is ComboCurve.com. So pretty straightforward.
Amazing. Armand, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Julian.
Of course.